Hello, I'm Colin Green, and you are listening to Spike Pit. Okay then, folks, delving back into the archives once again with this one. It was touch and go, I've got to say. One of the more painfully ponderous episodes that I feel quite happy about leaving in the archives. But you know what? I'm not going to. And part of this is due to a little flurry of calls I've received from my buddy Arlen Walker. He's quite appreciative of the re-releases and the whole business of sorting out my back catalogue. So, maybe my own judgment is not always the best to go with, and that seems very feasible. So, a flurry of calls then from Arlen. Then we get into this old pondering that I do. But you know what? The other thing that we have to mention is all the call-ins from some old friends. That is one of the highlights of going back through the archives. I'm enjoying it. I hope you do too. So without any further ado, let's get to it.
Hey Colin, Spike Pit. It's your boy Arlen Walker. I'm calling in. I apparently did not listen to the fourth GMologist session. I had listened to the first three, I know, but then Spotify tells me that the fourth one I haven't listened to. And I may have listened to it on Anchor, but if so, it was a while ago, so I don't remember it as well. So I am sort of going back through from there, going forward, listening to everything. And I'm particularly excited to get back into some of the stuff that you've got, the sort of archive stuff that you've brought back. I know you and I have talked about the idea of the sort of archives and stuff that maybe isn't quite as sort of representative of your sort of current thought or your current kind of standards of production, and whether to sort of hide that or, figure out how to update it or whatever. But I'm really enjoying the Spike Pit podcast, going back through and listening to a number of the things. It's fun to hear a lot of your discussion, and of course, you and Carl talking about stuff, especially the fourth episodes that I just finished. It was cool to hear you guys talking about kind of war games and Blood Bowl and all that sort of stuff. And I was actually going to recommend as a game, I don't know, I may have even recommended it to you before, but there's a game called To the Strongest, and then there's that's a sort of ancients and medieval version, and then there's a English Civil War version called For King and Parliament. I don't remember how much the rules are. I think you can get them on Wargame Vault or from the publisher directly, which I think is called like Big Red Bat or something, for like $10 in PDF or something. But part of what made me think of it is because you were talking about a sort of blend of kind of board and war game. And one of the cool things about To the Strongest is that it is a sort of big battle war game, although it uses stands instead of individual minis, which I think is actually, I tend to prefer that as a way to test games, because paper stands work a lot better than paper individual minis. And so if you don't want to like paint up a whole army, but just want to, cut out some dudes and put them on little bits of index card and all that sort of stuff like I used to in high school, it's a good way to test out a game. But anyway, one of the cool things about it is that the battlefield is divided into a sort of checkerboard, kind of like a chess or checkers game. And there's a specific rules about the kind of scale, and different squares on the board can have different like terrain features that impact the battle. But the idea is that everything kind of movement and attacking and all that is defined by these squares. And one of the things that does is for one thing, it kind of provides a structure, and it means that the game provides kind of nice sort of direct battle lines against each other, that there's not the sort of swirling, twisting element that can happen in sort of freeform movement games. But you have kind of, the two armies line up against each other and march forward and all that sort of stuff. And it is relatively easy to play with kind of improvised stuff. So you could play it. I, at one point, was trying to set up a Roll20 game to play it with specifically to play it with my grandfather, because I thought that we could do, because it uses squares, it would be much easier to use kind of Roll20's squares to play. But then you could play, you could use a checkerboard and pennies if you wanted to, if you didn't care about having actual miniatures and stuff. So anyway, it's a cool game worth checking out in my.
So Arlen got rather rudely cut off there. If I could spend the time messing about with this podcast, if I could prioritise it over my actual job and stuff like that, I would lovingly craft these episodes together. But I'm just going to call it guerrilla podcasting like everybody else, which means it's lazy ass podcasting where you just crash stuff out. But you know what? Who cares? The content is the same. Yeah, Arlen left another message. He's got a bunch of messages, as did a few other people that called in. But do you know what? I don't want the long episode, so I'm keeping it down. That will make more sense when you hear some of the other callers in hopefully next week. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, if you want to call in and tell me I'm wrong about my production values, please do that. Always looking for call-ins, actually. I'm finding it quite interesting to mix the new ones in with the old episodes. There's a certain dynamism, I think, but you might disagree, and that's fine. Also, don't expect to find me too much on the Discord going forward. Increasingly, that time sink, I just can't do it. I apologise. I do like to hang out with people on there now, but sometimes it really derails my thinking. I get caught up in discussions that just seem to be going in negative directions for no apparent reason, and it's really distracting. Sort of words getting put in your mouth, or sort of things you're trying to say through nobody's fault. They just seem to get twisted because of misunderstandings. I've talked about it before, but it's just clearly not the medium for me. I think I'm more of a face-to-face kind of guy. So, yeah, I'm just going to give that a rest. And perhaps this is useful to somebody else who perhaps shares that opinion. I think you can be a face-to-face person. You haven't got to get up on the social media just because everybody's doing it. Yeah, I don't know, but just as a way to kind of give some explanation to people that think, I haven't seen Spike Pit on the Audio Dungeon lately or anything like that. Yeah, I'm giving it a rest because for reasons just stated.
Hey Colin, this is Robert from DM Dad. I'm catching up with a lot of podcasts, so this is a bit late, but it's about Arfed's comment about traps. First of all, thanks a lot for using my trap as an example. I'm really honored. But for Arfed's question, a lot of my thinking on traps recently has been influenced by Courtney Campbell's Hack and Slash blog. He's the one who sort of steered me away from thinking of traps as gotcha things where you really are trying to hide them and get players to trigger them and then deal with the consequences, and turning them more into gameable puzzles at the table so that nobody really dies, but they spend some time thinking creatively. But all that comes from Courtney Campbell, so I would check his blog out. It's got a lot of great ideas.
So that was DM Dad, Robert Groves. Thanks for calling in, Robert. Always happy to hear from you. Keep the ideas coming, and really enjoying your podcasts. Traps. posed a question a couple of episodes back about traps. I spoke about my feelings at the time, and I know he listens to this, so he'll be hearing that. But the hack and slash and the subject of blogs, I can't remember who it was. It was on the Audio Dungeon Discord. I think it might have been Cody the Mysterious was talking about blogs on tape. I think it was blogs on tape. But that's what I've been up to. I've been downloading a load of those and been really impressed. It works for me totally. I can't read blogs. I don't get a busting lot of time for reading, but I can get hours of listening time, because it's not a problem for me to listen whilst I work. So this is why I'm a big fan of Anchor. This is why I listen to various podcasts, and these audio versions of blogs is brilliant for me. I wish, maybe more people did them, and I can wholeheartedly recommend them for people that have got time to listen, maybe on their commute or in their lunch hours, and perhaps haven't got the time to sit and read through blogs. And if you do need to sort of get, occasionally on blogs you get tables and things like that, and if that's the case, you can just go to that blog at a later date and pick up anything that that didn't transfer too well in the audio media. So yeah, brilliant tip, and I'll have to check out Hack and Slash, Robert. And with regard to shouting out your trap with the oily step, no worries, man. I thought I really enjoyed that episode, and it sort of stuck in my mind. So that's why I thought of that one. So the next call in is from Tim Shorts of Gothridge Manor, and he's talking about like a session report I did on my last session. I was running Stay Frosty, and it went pretty well, but I didn't manage to engage quite a few of the mechanisms of the rules. I kind of got a little bit carried away with the investigation aspect of the scenario, and we was only playing for 3 hours and kind of got a little bit lost in the weeds. So looking back, I would have liked to get some combat in there, and some of the different. You got a variety of actions that you can take in a combat, and I didn't really bring them to bear. And as you'll hear from Tim, he's talking about the usage die. We didn't really engage with that either. So, God, I don't know what I was doing for 3 hours, but we all had a good time. But clearly, I barely played Stay Frosty at all, and the whole point of the session was to give the rules are going over, But oh well, what can you do? We'll try again another time. Everybody's keen to have another go because the session did go well, and we did have fun. But it's funny how it goes sometimes. So let's hear from Tim.
Hey Colin, Tim Shorts from Gothridge Manor. Calling in about the usage die for Black Hack. We played that, I can't remember how many years ago it was, but I really did like the mechanic of that. Slots are always easy to do, and I don't know, there's a little bit of elegance to the simplicity of it and everything. So I'm kind of curious how it works out with your current game. So keep going. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks for the call in, Tim. It's Tim Shorts at Gothridge Manor, and rest assured I will keep you posted once I finally get to actually use the rules, or use the usage rules. So I've been away camping. I took my eldest son and myself. We went off to some local woodlands that are owned by a friend of ours, and met up with some people. There's around 20 of us. I do a bit of woodland crafts, woodworking and stuff, mostly working with knives and axes and more traditional tools and such. And it's something I've done since I was in college, back when I was 18, 19. And this area of the country has got quite a tradition for this. There's Windsor chairs are made near here, near an area called the Chilterns, and this group I'm in, it's all kind of tied in with that and the tradition of working out in the woods, producing stuff. But we're just like a gang of friends, really. Quite often I don't do anything when I'm there, But Ray Otis of a Plunderground podcast had said on the Audio Dungeon Discord, he sort of said, let us know how you get on, and perhaps how getting out into the wilderness and wilderness, that's a bit of a joke, but out into the countryside and doing some camping and bushcraft and whatnot, and perhaps talk about how that inspires gaming and informs your kind of sessions. And it definitely does. I mean, I thought about it, and there's maybe not, you wouldn't immediately associate the two perhaps, but when a party's off doing their hex crawl or some wilderness travel and things like that, if you're the type of person who enjoys the outdoors, and I do a bit of walking and hiking and climbing, stuff like that. I've recently talked about little canoe trips and things like that, and just getting out in the outdoors. There is definitely, when I'm describing a situation to the players, I'm running a game and I'm talking about a journey that they've made, I do call on these memories that I've gathered over the years, and when I'm picturing a place, it's quite often somewhere that I've been or seen. It might just be an image that I've seen, but places that I've actually visited. Maybe currently in the campaign, it's kind of a wintry time, and there's quite often snow-covered mountains, and I perhaps think about things I've seen skiing in the Alps or the Pyrenees, and it informs all the senses. So the sort of the feel of the cold air when you're in the cold, and you're getting the sort of hairs in your nostrils get kind of crispy, and what it's like to walk on a crust of snow, and how tiring it is if you've got to walk across the snowfield, and every time you take a step, the snow supports your weight momentarily, and then your foot just sinks all of a sudden, and it's a really tiring and disconcerting experience travelling on that type of crusty snow. And these are all just them little things like that you've picked up from your travels and being outdoors that you can inject into your game. Another thing I was talking about recently was the idea of magic and linking it with your surroundings, and kind of tying magic into the place and the environment. And once again, if you've been to these environments where there's that elemental kind of, you can feel the force of nature a little bit more. Like maybe you've been out at sea, or you've been up in the mountains, you've maybe witnessed avalanches, or if you're unlucky, perhaps been a bit too close for comfort, or avalanche survivor, or maybe wildfires. If you've been near them, and when you've been out and about, raging rivers. I've had my fair share of run-ins with raging rivers and high winds. All these things are if you've experienced them, they're really vivid in your mind, and I think they're a great thing to bring into your gaming. Another thing about getting out into the country, doing a bit of camping, is you get away from your normal daily life, and you get a little bit more time, and your mind perhaps wanders a little bit as you gaze into the campfire, and I quite often will get a bit of inspiration, or quite often when I'm sitting around the campfire, my mind will go to scenes in books like I forget that chapter. I don't think it is Out of the Frying Pan into the Fire. Maybe it is, but in The Hobbit, where they run into the trolls, and the trolls are sat around the campfire, and Bilbo comes in to do his first little bit of burglarising, and it all goes pear-shaped from there. And glancing into the fire and laying around in the woods, you just get sort of ideas. Maybe you just sort of see a funny tree, and it might inspire a monster. And the other thing is, I'm there with like 20 odd people, all from widely different backgrounds, and you chat about different things. On this occasion, I was talking to a gentleman who's a Tai Chi instructor, and he was talking about this Chinese sort of it's kind of a martial art, but it's a form of exercise, and it's a whole spiritual thing. And it got me thinking about monk characters in the game, and maybe like you could have a druid or a ranger could do a little bit of this Tai Chi as part of their shtick. So these little trips out into the woods can be quite inspiring and productive. And also, when the weather turns nasty, or if you maybe you're travelling there on foot, you make navigational mistakes, or you're running short of food, stuff like that. They're some of the emotions that get involved with that, and some of the feelings. There are also things that you can portray and explain to the players who perhaps haven't done it. I remember knocking over. I was on a place in the sort of the middle part of the UK, between Manchester and Sheffield. There's an area called the Peak District, and there's a famous place called Kinderscout, and it's basically like a high, I think you probably would call it a bit of a peat bog type of place. And I'd gone up there with a friend of mine, and we were, you're not supposed to, but we were basically wild camping on there. After all the day visitors had gone down, we were just looking for somewhere just to stop for the night, and then we were going to move on. You know, we're not doing any harm, but it was a beautiful day, beautiful and quiet. But we were getting a little bit short of food, and we were cooking on this little stove, and we had like military mess tins back in the day, and they're like a rectangle sort of cooking pot and eating utensil at the same time. And we had a stack of them because we had one stove, so you put like your pasta and whatnot in boiling water at the bottom, and then like your sauce was on the next layer being heated by the steam from the boiling water. And then above that we had some custard, so this was the third tier, and that was just warming through from the heat up from the sauce, so the heat travelled up through. And of course we knocked it all over. It was our last food, and I remember scraping it all up off of the heather, spoon by spoon, back into the mess tins, and it had all got mixed up. So there was pasta and sauce and custard and bugs and heather and peat and all sorts of nastiness back in the pot. But of course, our last food, we had to eat it. You weren't going to leave it. And there's that sinking feeling as it goes over, and just the dismay of it. And that's something that, an experience like that is just something you can bring to your gaming. And I'm no big traveller, but I'm sure guys that are listening, you would have had experiences and brought them to your game. And what I was going to say is I'd be really interested to hear if anybody has has done something like this, brought kind of, their experiences into the game, because they were so poignant when they were doing something else. In particular, maybe travelling or camping or fishing trip or canoeing trip. And, perhaps you could call in and give a brief account of what you were doing and then how you used it in a game. I thought if I could get a few call-ins on that, I think it would make a really good episode. So that's my appeal for today. And that, as they say, is a wrap. Big thanks goes out to you, the listener, for taking a bit of time out of your day to listen to old Spike Pit. Take care, and I'll catch you later.